Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of my Stoic Circus. And today's topic of the day is, can you mind what matters? That's right. An episode all about the focus on the good things, the bad things, and everything else that really works for you. So stay tuned as we get started on my Stoic Circus. All right, everybody. How y'all doing this morning? So it's an interesting morning to talk about focus. And the Stoics would constantly talk about, if you can narrow your focus, you can narrow and really be a decision maker for what actually distracts you and what works for you. And many times when we come on to different platforms, when we look at different things in life, where we work at, what we live with, what kind of partner we're going to have, what really works for you, and why do we need to talk about this? Well, recently I've watched, I can't say really recently, I guess all along I've always noticed how people get into chaos, how they get into problems, how they actually deliberate on who they should be with, how they align with somebody, so on and so forth. So when I really think about most of the things that have taken place, it's really about what really matters. Can you mind what matters? Like for me, what really matters to me is my family. I want to make sure that my family's taken care of. I love them so much. That means all my daughters, my significant other, my lady, all that great stuff, right? And so when I look at what really matters, I don't look at always who's going to be the benefit. you know, for me, I have to look at, how do I work with the community? How do I really get people going for the day, so on and so forth, that I have to work with. And sometimes it's not even about who you exactly work with, but who you get to collaborate with, which goes to my life quote. And it basically says that no one is self made. We all have self interest, but we're all community built. Whether you've had a good home or not had a good home, um, you have to really consider how you involve yourself. And sometimes over involvement really reveals a lot about who you are. Maybe you're talking too much. Maybe you're making endless points that don't really matter. And that happens a lot. And especially nowadays, I feel people are just frustrated with the things that have taken place. I feel people don't want to collaborate with each other unless they see an equity right off the bat. Declare your intentions. Are you going to use me? So on and so forth. Or how far can I trust you? No, we've been friends for such a long, long period of time. Where, where does that stop and end? And even looking in the social audio apps, I mean, I go into a lot of different quality rooms, and sometimes there's no quality rooms when I deal with the social audio spaces. But I do collaborate with a lot of different people, exchange ideas, positions. But see, when we look at what really matters, where are you getting actual returns? Is it an emotional return, a positional return? And no one wants to feel inadequate in the long run. No one wants to feel like they don't have a voice. Some people are good, though, at keeping their voice to themselves. They keep quiet. They're not going to be a distraction to you. They're just watching and listening. And sometimes I feel like those people are the wisest ones of the bunch. And other times I feel like those are the most dangerous people of the bunch. But how do you deliberate on that? So let's look at, maybe how the Stoics viewed things. And they would say, can you mind your own business and not be distracted on others? Now, Marcus Aurelius, in one of his passages from Meditations, he says, my reasoned choice is as indifferent to the reasoned choice of my neighbor as to his breath and body. However, much we've been made for in cooperation, the ruling reason is in which us we matter our own affairs. If this weren't the case, then the evil of someone else could become my harm, and God didn't mean for someone else to control my misfortune. Now, if you notice that last line about guiding misfortune, take and look at the example of rich and poor. Well, what about the middle class who's caught between the two? One, you could either go up or you can go down. But I like the last line that he said. He says, God didn't mean for someone else to be in control of my misfortune. Well, that's completely up to you, what you surrender and how you're going to surrender it to people and or organizations and groups. How do you really keep the focus? So I'm asking lots and lots of questions right off the bat, because these are questions you should be asking yourself instead of relying on somebody else's discernment. A lot of times when we get to a place that I don't know, I need to go Google search, or I need to find someone who's so closely related to that subject matter, maybe an expert. But a lot of times the answer is revealed within our actions and our choices. So the first most important part of can you mind what matters is being mindful of what you say. That's number one. So the second thing is what you actually take an offense to. And number three is what assumptions are you making on any circumstance? And the last most important is can you do your best? Now, those all come from the four agreements that I use in my daily life. I'm not always the best practitioner, but I try to keep it in focus. And when I look at actually what's taken place, the more the chaos, the more I walk away. I think about it's time to go search for other reasons, finding different things. Let me look at what best edifies me and creates me. Sometimes I'll sample the spaces and listen. And it's been reported to me that certain individuals, say like on Clubhouse, they've lost their standing. They cannot speak no more. They've created nothing but shock and awe. And and I think to the biggest populous rooms that I've ever seen, there's always one common theme: to sort somebody out. So to call somebody out a liar, we need to get this person off the air, or this person should not be disturbing. But see, there's never a prognosis of what can we do? How can we sort out the scams, the frauds, the hearsayers, the naysayers? And that means that you're going to have to understand your own reasoned choice. If you're bored, be mindful of where that boredom leads to. A lot of times, boredom, as they say, leads you to the playground of the devil's idle hands. And once you're there, it's very hard to get out. But at no time are you really truly trapped. It's your own choice, right? So we go on to like really more about Marcus Aurelius and what he says about um, living a just life. He'll go on to say the unjust person acts against the gods. And for insofar in nature of the universe made rational creatures for the sake of each other, with an eye towards mutual benefit based on true and never for harm. Anyone breaking nature will obviously act against the oldest of gods. What does he mean by that? He means a lot by that. He's like, look, there's everything that you need is here. It's just up to you about how you build it up, or how you are going to distribute the resources. And what I've found lately is to live that justice means you're also going to have to give up too much abundance. When you have your cup is overflowing, pour some out so it's palatable. I mean, do you really want to spill? It's like, imagine drinking wine or juice. Would you really like to spill everything over your shirt or whatever you're wearing every time you lift your cup? It doesn't sound fun, does it? But that's the same that goes and applies to life. There are parts of your life that you'll be overly abundant. And when people see that you're overly abundant, what is the first things that happen? A lot of times it's envy and jealousy. And when we see envy and jealousy, we tend to, I've experienced it myself. I've threw hate like, hey, why do they deserve more than I have? Well, did I do the work? Am I counting somebody else? Am I counting what's in somebody else's pockets? If I can check myself before any of that escalates, if I can check myself before anyone has anything else to say about my optics, then maybe, just maybe, I may have better control. When I look at actually what we control, it is outwardly on the experience, what comes out of your mouth and what goes into your mind. You can choose to listen to people or you can choose not to. But people feel like they need to side with something, make something right. the best way you can see examples of that is look at politics. Look how people are treated. If they don't feel like they're treated well, they'll group together. But how well will they remained glued together? Eventually, the groups, they kind of like, no, we have secondary thoughts and secondary, you know, implications that what we're going to be involved with. We'll work with you for a time being, and then we'll go. And I find that interesting because I look at the same thing when I look at friendships. I have no expectations of my friends. I do not rely on them. I rely on myself first. If my friends can help me out, that's great. But if they can't, I have no expectations that they owe me anything. Just because you were there for me in the hardest of times doesn't guarantee me to be always there for you. When it's like, going back to the cup analysis, sometimes you have to drink from your own cup before anyone else you can share with. But if you're down to the bottom of the cup and you give out what you have, then what do you have and they do? Working for people in their causes, their effects. It doesn't really make any sense in the long term. But somehow, like here in the United States, we've gotten trapped in this belief that if I go work a steady job, it will afford me a good life. I'll have what's called a pension, retirement fund, and I'll be able to support my family, take vacations, live my life. But between the hours of, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever you work, um, people feel like if you're not always giving extra, then how do I stay relevant? And it's preached all over. And see, I don't believe in giving extra. I don't. I believe in just doing a really good job as I'd want to receive it. I forget where I learned that from. I think I learned it from How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it was about John Rockefeller or no, it was Henry Ford. He's talking about leave it better than you found it. You know, it's a strong, strong statement because when we look at what takes place, when we leave it better than we found it, that means it's not that the person that has the object or thing or the way is deserving of it. It just means that I'd like to let it be used for somebody else when they come across this. And maybe they'll treat it as nice or maybe they won't, but at least the way that I leave it, you know what? I'm fine. Kind of like the best way to explain it is like whenever we have barbecues or outings at my house, the one of the biggest complaints in my household is look at all these dishes. Well, what avenues did I create for those dishes, right? To be addressed. Will people just leave them on my counters? Yeah, they will. If you give them no trash bin, if they have no moral or ethics, then what do they do then? You know, you can ask them politely, "Hey, could you help me out and just the trash can's over there. Could you just scrape your plate and over there and I'll take care of it." And it takes a team to understand that. It takes people to understand that, hey, it's not because the way things are at somebody else's house, it's what happens in your house. So that's really the sum. Can you start really looking at what matters? Really filter out the things that benefit you versus the things that you're just wanting to spend endless amounts of time. Now I'm going to bring some of my colleagues and friends up from the audience. Let's see. I've got Jenny. Hey, good to see you, Jenny. And then I got Beth. Let's see. I've got Miss Barbara and Miss Caroline. How you doing? And even Solomon. I see Solomon Malit. I see also on Clubhouse. So I'd like to invite you all up. So you guys, I know some of you came in late. And that's fine. But what do you think? Can you really focus on what matters to you? Can you stay focused? You know, that'd be one question. And what's the hardest part about keeping your focus? If you guys care to share. Ah, good to see you, Danielle. Okay. Anyone care to answer or share? Hold on one second. I think the mic went out. One second. I'll be right back. There we go. There.
Okay, I'm gonna talk over him then. No, what was I gonna say? Okay, I believe that. Excuse me. I believe everybody can focus. Um, like to have like one of those vacation and just hear drama and or just the little spices of the stuff that goes on Clubhouse, and we'll go into that room just to listen in and be like, oh my god, that's what's happening. and things like that. But I believe we should all focus regardless of what goes on around us. Because if the drama is not about you, they say don't get involved. No, it's not so much getting involved. It's just we just want to hear what's the gossip about, what's the hot topic. But I believe that if you're focused of what you want to do and making the money, you could do it because oops, um, it's the same thing when you're working Monday through Friday and the weekends you want to relax and enjoy your relaxation. It's the same thing here on Clubhouse. If you do it like that and plan it out the way you should and have days where you are making money and then you use Clubhouse as leisure and just want to hear, you know, those rooms, it's okay. That's what I believe. So if anybody else wants to concur or disagree, let me know.
That's interesting. Now I can hear you both, and you guys are being, shared with on my YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and everyone. So the mic went out for a minute, but yeah, I mean, look at how you apply it to life. Do you invite, say, like to your parents, problems that don't deserve to be in their attention? Most time, I do not. Or look at how you apply yourself, when something comes across disturbing. Like, I guess the best example could be like, say, like disturbing news. You find out, like, say, like there's a mass shooting in your town. That could be very important because it could deal directly with your life. But what may not deal with your life is, like, for example, if someone has a beef with each other that both of them, maybe you should not be the peacemaker or um the voice of reason, because then eventually they're going to look at you. Well, who do you side with? Who do you think's more valuable? And it's like, look, I've told people, look, I don't like your debate and I don't like your argument, but I'm not going to contribute to it. It's very difficult when people are emotionally charged on anything. Say, like, if a child's injured, parents get charged up. um I think the biggest response lately is when you hear about the movie The Song of Freedom, or The Sound of Freedom, excuse me. And why is it so important? Because it's about trafficking, and people realize this could happen to your kid. What if it were your child, if they were kidnapped, and all you wanted, like in the movie, was based around a couple of kids that got snatched up from their dad who were going to trial for being models, and people had false pretenses. But people get riled up in emotions, and then, like, they want to do something. But it's like, how long do they want to stay focused on it? And how much does it matter to them? Well, I'm going to contribute to help support safe actions for parents and kids. I want them to see, like, hey, there are activities we can do, that we don't always have to be so uptight and on guard. What are practices? Like, for example, I'm not going to let my kids stay the night at other people's houses so easily, or um, being mindful of when I drop my kids off, say, like to a swim practice or soccer practice. How, do I have a relationship with a coach and other parents that know that my child is not going to walk away with just any stranger to pick them up? So that could be a good example of how you can take what really matters and prioritize what matters. Good morning to America's Mom and Danielle and Miss Barbara. How you doing? And Beth, good to see you. So, what are ways that you build your focus for your benefit in anything? How do you build your focus on anything? You know, that would be a question. To me, the short answer is, does it pay me to benefit, and can I help others with my benefit? That's how I look at it. If I can't help others in benefiting and it's just myself, I might give it a consideration, but how far does it go? I kind of leave it. So let's see. I got America's Supermom. I think she wants to come up. Come on up. All right, America's Supermom. What do you say? What's your contribution? I know you just walked in.
Yeah, the question is, how do I build my focus?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get the question so I can answer.
Sure, go right
For
ahead.
what was the final part of that? What was the final part?
Oh, we'll just focus on that for right now. How do you keep your focus?
Yeah, I think really having clarity on what you want to achieve helps you to be more impactful. So I just did a room on LinkedIn, and we had been studying the book The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Oh, I love
And
that
so that
book. I love that. Og
yeah, it
Mandino?
it it was amazing. Yes. So it was amazing. So the first time that I read it, because I'm doing two studies, one on LinkedIn with a gentleman and then another one here on Clubhouse. And the first time I read the first scroll, it really moved me because, it's today I begin a new life. And I had so much conviction from the author really knowing themselves that it really sparked me to write my own scroll. So after I read the first scroll, I wrote my own. And I think when it comes to focus, we do not know ourselves enough.
Mm,
And because we don't know ourselves enough, we're always distracted and um, deceived by things that we think will complete us or will fulfill us. And then in the end, we're disappointed. So we're just juggling this whole thing of disappointments all the time because, you look at Siri and Alexa and a lot of these things, they know our voice, they know our habits. You got rewards cards where you stripe, do you use the card before you shop so they know your spending habits. And a lot of these things are dished back out to us because they know our patterns and thoughts more so than ourselves. And so I think the ability to focus is really knowing yourself. I was listening to this interview some time ago. I think it was like 2 years ago here on Clubhouse. And it was an author, and he said, when you have clarity, you're able to distinguish between a distraction and an opportunity.
mm.
And how many times do business owners think that everything's an opportunity when in sometimes it's really just a distraction? So that would be my answer.
I like that for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's like you're really saying like, "Hey, when I really mind what matters, I benefit, but when I don't mind." And what are those, I mean, America's Supermom. So, what are the common ways that you can get distracted? Or what are ways that you have been distracted? That's a better question. What ways have you been distracted from what's taken place in your life?
Comparison.
Mm,
Because, for example, let's say we're on Facebook and we've created a pattern or a system that works for us. Maybe we post twice a week. Well, then a new platform comes out. We've already got something working, but we're distracted by thinking that this new app or this new whatever is going to do something more than what we've already been doing. And so we try to recreate what we're doing somewhere else, and we get lost in the process because a lot of times, when we have distractions, there's no strategy to it. So one of the things that I've done when people come to me and they're like, "Hey, you've got this new thing." And I'm like, "I can't even deal with that right now because if I don't have a strategy," which for me is like knowing my own reason while I'm taking part in it, then I'm not going to do it. It has to make sense and it has to fit into what I'm already doing. If it doesn't, and if I don't have time to entertain that, then that's not for me right now. So I think comparison or feeling like we're missing out is the easiest carrot that's dangled in front of us a lot.
I think that's probably the best one I've ever heard, because when I start to compare and contrast against things that I've done or I haven't done, when I start looking at someone else's lane and they're doing so much better than I, initially, I'm not really thinking about what's their process. Can I learn from this? Or am I just trying to gain another cheat? And I like the example of the apps. The best one that I can really think of is like when we think of Threads, right? It's got the fastest growth amongst people right now. It's got the fastest growth more than any other app out there. And why? Because people don't want to be on the fear of missing out of what can the promise of entering into an app in the early stages, are they getting advantages? But to me, if you don't have a product or a movement or a thing that where you're getting a return, then you're just creating posts for followers. And I mean, I have quite a few followers in different places, but it doesn't mean that do they want to follow me at every step of the way? Am I making social media that produces outcomes? Matter of fact, I was in a room where I asked several very, let's say, popular influencers, and I asked all of them, if you're not creating methods of getting paid for what you produce on here, then what are you doing? You're clouding up. And recently we saw some people, some individuals that are now suspended because they created so much hype and they felt like they were impenetrable or couldn't be clipped or taken down. And what ended up happening was they weren't so good after all. And it didn't take much. It didn't take much common sense to what kind of rooms do they run? They run sensational rooms. They run rooms where people come out their neck and they start yelling at each other. For what benefit? What benefit? A lot of times the benefit is under false pretenses. They're getting paid, and they would say, and I quote, "This is entertainment." But people would come out so emotionally charged and drained, and then they'd say, well, the app is just draining. It's all full of liars. And then I would have to ask those same people, how many rooms did you attend to look for value? Because when you look for something that's emotionally fulfilling and valuable, then and you filter what doesn't really matter, then you're going to see what kind of experience you make for yourself. I go into rooms where I'm learning about how to be a better podcaster, how to distribute my YouTube, how to get more significant followers who not only become fans, but super fans, who are promoters without me having to promote. Because otherwise, I get into the rat race of once you get in the rat race of trying to compete on social media, you are at the mercy of viewership and you're getting away from the cause of why you're here. When I create Stoic talks, when I create reasonable discussions, it's to help propel people forward. Because the more that we're all emotionally secure, the more that we're really focused on really what matters. Like some of you notice, like in some of the rooms, I ask, like last Friday, I asked, what do you want to do this weekend versus what are you going to do? And the narrative changes so drastically because when you look at what do you want to do and what do you have to do, you know, it's like, damn, I have to do laundry, I have to do the lawn. And by the time you're exhausted, because you've left all those tasks for the weekend and you create no levity, no space for you to grow, no time to be curious. So it really it begs upon your attention, So where your attention goes is where you flow. But work is never going to not be there. But when you're bored, a lot of things are waiting for you to attend, and then it becomes overwhelming. Papa, you wanted to say something. I see your mic flashing.
Yeah, I think what getting onto the clarity. Start at what I've learned in my 46 years of existence is starting at the solution and then working back from that instead of uh, becoming a mile wide and puddle deep. Dig your solution in deep, and then start start prioritizing it accordingly. So if, for example, like when you're trying to build your audience and you want people to promote you and or you want super fans, okay, that's your solution. Okay, what am I doing right now that isn't associated with that? What am I doing right now that's got me a mile wide and puddle deep? Because the biggest thing that we get into is we get busy as dreamers and and we get busy, but we don't stay productive. And so what we try to do is we try to put all these fires out at the same time, when in actuality, if we built our solution and we're staying focused on that, anything that weighs against that is easily depicted and noticed. So what I do for clarity is I see my solution, I meditate on my solution, pray on my solution, and then I adapt accordingly to the people around me. Are they a part of the solution or part of the problem? A lot of times you're going to find out your family is a lot of the problem and a lot of the distraction and a lot of the naysayers. So I just say, keep your mind on your solution. Don't get mile wide, puddle deep. Stay productive and don't get busy.
That man said a lot. And I just want to say that and thank you so much. And many of us know these lessons. That's right. We got to blow the horns, and give the love. What he said about the family part, your family are the first to misunderstand you. So know that clearly. Know where you're not asking for their approval. You just need to invite them along with your journey. And if they want to be a part of it, great. If they don't, and they will have opinions. It's kind of like also when you're a parent, you want your kids to survive and thrive. You want to ultimately to thrive. But it's like you as a parent, you want to protect them from making really bad decisions that you've already made. But every generation goes through a different style of obstacles and problems. Same problem, it's just delivered differently and how they operate. Look at nowadays, do kids read books for solutions? Do they really go and try things out and then figure out, okay, well, that didn't work. Let me find out someone who does. No, what's the first solution? Let me Google it. Let me look it on TikTok, YouTube, and so forth. Want to welcome in Doc Fit, and Julie and Stephanie. Thanks for coming by. So, and it is balance, like for example, I've been a big proponent lately to do walks. If you're not walking at least a mile a day, a mile's distance, you are going to develop so many conditions, right? You're going to have health issues. And say like if you put off like going to the gym or having an exercise routine, it really says a lot about you, because then if you can't remain healthy, eventually your unhealthy ways will prove you to be inadequate. And I think that's where people really don't want to be, you know, like how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others. One of the things, I don't constantly tell people I'm tired. If I say I'm tired, that means I need to go take a nap or go to bed. If I'm saying it like I'm exhausted, with worn out with what people are saying, okay, well, what kind of environment are you putting yourself into? You have to understand your choice is your choice and nobody else's. And when you have the freedom inside yourself to decide that, that's a big deal. So thank you so much for really pointing that out. I like the working backwards. Yeah. Why does it need to exist in my life? How's it going to benefit me? You know, that really shows, can you mind what matters? And I phrase the question, can you? Because now you're having to decide. It's an option. The next question is, will you? Will you mind what matters? Will you mind when the distractions are heavy? Let's say wars are going around all around you. Your mom's fighting with your dad. Your kids are fighting with each other. Or your best friends are fighting because of something insignificant because they weren't invited to a party or whatever. So those are mediocre problems. Yeah, we can feel personally offended, but for how long? And people will hold grudges. I think that's the number one word. Um, uh, Even to what America's Supermom said, comparison, contrast. Well, the next thing that follows that is grudge. Why do people hold grudges? Why don't they let go? People find problems if you tell someone, hey, you need to let go of your issue. And the first feeling that comes, or thought comes in their head is like, I'm offended. Who the fuck do you think you are? Where you take offense is not where everyone else has to take offense. That's why you don't have to take offense to what anyone else says. Like in the Four Agreements, he says, be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. There's a reason for that. Don't create chaos where it doesn't belong. And what many of us have seen lately, people complain, why can't Clubhouse go back to the way that it was in the beginning? And you have that choice to cultivate that experience. Like America's Supermom and several others, we go into those goal rooms in the morning, right? And what do we focus on? Do we focus on what you're really having to be stuck on, or do you focus on what's going to move you forward? If you don't mind answering for that.
Absolutely. Where your intention is, that's where your attention is. So intention and attention. I love what Papa said about productivity versus busyness. I learned from a productivity specialist that the concept of being productive is starting and completing something. So a lot of times we're busy but not productive because we're starting a bunch of stuff, but we're not finishing it. And so overwhelm comes because you've got a whole bunch of moving things half started or half finished, and you're not getting anything done. So you're feeling like a failure. You're really um, having this image of yourself more so than what any words people can tell you. That's why one of the most impactful things to do in the morning is to make up your bed, because if you did a task, it's complete. And so really finding ways that you can set up time in your day where you can complete something, because you mentioned something else about work always being there. So if that's the case, we're not going to exalt ourselves trying to do in an hour what is going to take 2 months to complete. So the best method of doing this is to set a timer. So you set a timer for 15 minutes. I'm going to do lead generation. For 15 minutes, I'm going to respond to people on LinkedIn. So you set this timer, the timer goes off, you're able to completely shut that off because you know that that's a never ending task. As long as you are part of that app and there's always something to do, same thing like email. You're going to constantly get emails. But if you find that the end of the day is best for you to read your emails, well, set a timer, do those, and let the rest go. It'll be there tomorrow. But we're not able to do that because we have this thing of scrolling or even being in what we call very thought provoking conversation. And we feel guilty that we did that. And so we'll go back to work and then we feel like, oh my gosh, I just haven't got anything done. Rather than saying, you know what, I was on the phone for an hour more than I thought. So let me just set a timer because there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this. This way you're empowered and in control, and you can even prioritize if you know you can't get everything done. What is one thing that you can do that will move you forward so tomorrow you don't have as much to do? So those are my thoughts.
That's right. You definitely get an applaud for that one. All right, all right. It really does matter in the long run. It does. Like, I like what you said about making your bed. My bed's not made right at the moment because I wanted to put this out in a certain period of time. But as I get off this podcast, guess what I'm going to do? Look at my floor, look at my environment, keep it tidy, keep it clear of distractions. You never realize your living space can be the biggest distraction in your life, because it's an indication of how you practice things, even at work, socially. You could be messy. What if you promise too much, more than what you can afford? You mean well, but in reality, you may not be able to afford the time. I've seen people countlessly want to do the right thing, but they can't even take care of themselves. They try to false promote. There is this sense of shame and what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. And the way that you defeat imposter syndrome, it's not that you need to get organized, which is probably the first thing that most people think of. Let me get organized. Okay, well, once you're organized, then what do you do? What is your strategy? How do you apply it? How do you take action into the organization? This is where many companies go wrong. Their message is not uniform, like, look, we're out to provide the best possible service we can. And the more that we all understand, instead of trying to meet every team member's needs, the more that we understand, allegedly, the better off we're prepared for whatever obstacles we face. But nowadays we're in like a blaming atmosphere, like, well, this person was in charge of this thing, and and why didn't my kids listen to me? I've been trying to tell them for weeks. Well, I remember my girl saying something to me today about, about my daughter. Like, well, how can you tell her to clean her room if she doesn't know how to clean it? And it stopped me and it made me pause for a minute. It made me realize, I was like, she's not prepared to do this overwhelming task, because if I'm doing the same thing she does, how can she follow my orders? Kids follow their parents, whether you like it or not, your goods and your bads. And same with people. If you constantly show up messy and you're constantly just floating with words, you're going to get floated with words. If you're constantly distracted by every little thing that comes across the headline news, guess what? The people around you are going to be distracted. And this is why Epictetus and Seneca would really point out, the more that I can show me your colleagues and your friends, I will show you exactly who you are through evaluation. That's tough to really swallow, because we don't want our friends to be judged. I don't want my friends and colleagues, but I separate the big difference between acquaintances and friends, or colleagues in workspace. If I work with you, my standard is I'm not necessarily your friend, nor am I your enemy. I just know I need to work with you in sobriety of thought. I don't want you to use what happens at my home to use for a coffee talk or a water cooler discussion. No one wants that. But somehow we mix that in constantly. And then we wonder why we're in so much trouble. How many people on this stage can honestly say that you detest drama? Let's ask the room. Everyone put a 1 in the chat or put a thumbs up in your picture, and you detest drama. Let's see, I've got 2, 3. Julie, you want to speak up? 4, Jenny.
Yeah, I detest drama for sure. There's been so much drama here on Clubhouse too.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredible.
Right. And my
Wait,
question.
your message. Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah. Your mic sounds a little muffled, but that's okay. I can hear you. But I just want to say that it starts with the moment your mind and your ears attach.
Is this better?
Yes, it is better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sure.
It starts with the moment you want to attend, and then the follow-ups from the want, the action. John Wiley, how you doing this morning? Good to see you. What would you like to contribute?
Oh, so I didn't know my mic was open.
It's okay. It's okay.
The one thing, and I got here late. I was doing my radio show.
It's all right, man.
So there's a phrase I have not heard in a long time that I try to remember, and someone mentioned in Clubhouse yesterday. Not my circus, not my monkeys. A lot of what goes on in Clubhouse and in the real world and everywhere else is not my business. I don't need to interject myself at all. And as a matter of fact, I don't even need to stop what I'm doing to pay attention. So when you talk about drama, one of the hazards of police work is we get inundated with he said, she said conversations. And it's a total waste of time and energy. So I have two choices. When I see that, I can decide to become a part of it. I can consume it. And by the way, all gossip stops when people stop listening. I can consume it, or I can ignore it and do what I need to do to focus on my circus, my monkeys. And I try to do that all the time. Doesn't mean I'm always successful, but most of the time I am. Thanks.
Definitely appreciate that. And you know who said that? I heard it yesterday. I heard it from Credit Ninja as I was in another room about, AI softwares for social media. And
That's right. It's so spot on true.
right. Some people may be offended by the terminology of using monkeys, but you can use whatever you want. My pet, your dog, whatever. It doesn't matter, but don't get twisted on the exact words. Get interested in what really makes a difference. And if you're not weighing out the options, like I've been tempted. I remember, was it Saturday morning? I had 55 pings. I had 55 notifications and friends sending me, you need to be in here. And I'm like, why do I need to attend those crazy spaces? 5:00 in the morning, you know what I'm doing? I'm getting up, going for my morning walk, run, exercise, whatever it is to keep my mind sober first. If I'm not working on that body, the mind will not follow. If my mind goes first thing attending to Clubhouse or to get onto something else before I've attended to myself, who am I? You're weighed, you're measured, and you're leveraged. And if you find yourself coming out your neck, and I'm guilty of coming out my own neck because something I'm triggered or want to be responsive, and I think that I'm going to correct people. I'm the one that has the problem, not you. That's a big deal. We look at problems as it's like cancer. It spreads. But if you look at problems and translate, well, I've got an obstacle. This obstacle of attention means that it's in my way. Now I look at what's in my way and it's like, okay, now I know how to attend. So there's times you're stuck in analysis and trying to figure it out, but you just need to take a walk away, take a break, get off. Like, hey, I don't think any work environment minds you to take a 5-minute walk away from a problem. I really don't think that no one has a problem with that. That's why they've created the break systems in a lot of companies and corporations. And in corporations, they create these spaces. Go walk away from it a little bit. Step back so you can have a broad view and use all the tools that you already have. Use already the experience that you have. You don't have to be a scholar to figure out, well, if I don't like drama, I don't attend. But believe it or not, drama always takes place in some fashion, shape, or form, but it's how you respond to it. So welcome to the stage, Matt, Connie, welcome in. Thank you for stopping by. I definitely appreciate it. And all those in the audience, if you'd like to come up, feel free to raise your hand. I'm only got a few more, just a little bit longer, but I think this topic is a hot topic to talk about, because when we look at what really matters, I'm going to find out who's helping me profit, and then how I will share my profit with others. That's how I work. You do me good, I'm going to help you do good. But a lot of times I do good for other people before even asking, because I know that creates pathways, walkways, whatever. I know I could spend money, and I've donated money to people, never asking for a return, because I feel whatever that's going to help them process. Matter of fact, a friend of mine or a colleague on here, I donated some money so that she could get to her treatment, to her mental health treatment. And I did not mind, not one bit. I'm never going to ask for a cent back. I just want to see her happy, see her focus, and how she could be an asset to the community. And guess what? She did exactly what she said. I don't have to worry about, whether it was going to be used for a bad purpose, because that's what goes in our minds. It's a constant reflection. It's like, imagine a beggar or someone homeless coming up to you and begging for you in front of a grocery store. There's this one guy at Safeway here by my house. He has like a clipboard and papers, and his story is, I got shot. I'm homeless. He has a son sitting by him. I need money to help me stay in a hotel. He looks so organized, and he pulls at people. And The first time he got $10 out of me, you know, and I didn't even blink. But then he's seen me before and he tries to tug, and I'm like, look, I'm going to stop for exactly 2 minutes. And do you remember exactly who I am? Because a few days ago, I helped you out. So by standing in front of this grocery store, are you creating outcomes so that you don't have to be here asking people? And what happened? He shut up. He turned his back on me, walked away to the next person. I said, well, thank you for your time. Walked in, went and got my groceries, moved on. But see, people take that experience like, oh, I can't ever trust someone in need. You don't have to if you don't want to. This is that simple. And when we help each other out without looking for returns, it's because, like the cup analogy I talked earlier in the show, is there's times your cup is so full you need to share it with somebody else. It's just that simple. I mean, imagine, do you really want to spill your large cup of wine all over you? You never try to take a drink out of a cup, and as you're trying to take a drink, you notice that all the drips are spreading on your shirt or your blouse or whatever you're wearing. That's an indication you have too much. And when you have too much, guess what? People start complaining and you start living idle. Share more, get more, ask for exactly what you want, work with people who can help you get there, understand expectations and opportunities. When you have more expectations, you got more problems. But when you get, say, like a group of people that really will help you, then who say, hey, you know what, Jay, I really love your rooms. You're creating a positive message. You really helped my day out. Thank you for giving me a call. There's people I've give personal phone calls to, which can be dangerous on here, but I've taken the time to sit with them for maybe an hour, 20 minutes. By helping them go forward helps me go forward. I've meant more to people on my good side. And that's what, when you want to turn your reputation around, that's a hard thing to do, especially if you've had a bad one. I've been extremely emotional with people and really tarnished my own name. And now I want to dig, but like, because I want to be a better person, I don't do just good deeds for nothing. Nah, because I see someone who's going through worse than I am, and you share that benefit. Satva, welcome into the room. Connie, Mama Kay, how y'all doing? Is there any contributions you guys would like to offer and add?
I will. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Yes, and Jason, you obviously know this, but for everyone who doesn't, Jason has poured into me and helped me get my finances in order. And he suggested something, just put away 10% of each day, because I get paid daily by my clients where I clean for. And I was able to, set a habit, make a habit, a healthy one financially, and it's made a positive impact on my life. And as simple as that sounds, it's a whole issue with discipline, self-discipline, which I didn't have a whole lot of. And so I'm grateful, Jason. Thank you for helping me and for checking in on me also. I really appreciate the genuine friendship that you've offered to me, and for the assistance and your wisdom, because it has impacted me in a way that has been life-changing and will forever be that way. And so thank you. I appreciate you, and I do love you.
That's right. She definitely gets applause. Not because she's thanking me. I see a lot of hearts in the room. When you really help someone, you really assist someone, and then just let it go. Like, watch them shine. Some people will go and do more good. Matter of fact, I helped a lady out who asked me, this was last year. She asked me, hey, I know you make social impacts in the community of Stockton, right? I go, yeah. And she goes, I want to have a big voice just like you. And I said, well, okay, well, what would you like to work on? And she said, I want to work on the kids that go into foster care, and I want to work with kids who get into the system and they need help and they need love. And I said, okay, well, there's your cause and effect. You want to move mountains. And she's like, how do I start? Start talking, create actions, create steps, maybe volunteer. And she's like, well, I work 2 jobs and I have 2 kids, and how do I do this? And I said, well, why is it so close to you? Because I was a foster kid. I got put in the system. I got in trouble a lot. But I said, okay, well, you have experience. So now you become relatable. That's a skill. Take your relations. And she's like, I never thought about that. I never talk about how I can be relatable. I said, start there. About 9 weeks after that, I found out this lady started her own nonprofit. And how it works with the community, when sometimes kids are intaken in the juvenile hall system or Mary Graham Hall or whatever, they're lost or they're just been beaten down. And she goes and she tries to attend. She tries to get counselors to volunteer. She gets all these people, and I didn't do anything. All I did was just like kind of restructure the optics. That's all I did. I just said, okay, well, and then she called me back and she said, thank you, had it not been that talk. And I'm like, not trying to promote myself because I really don't want that. But the example is how you can make a social impact on somebody, even with even skills you don't even think you have. So then you find what matters to you. When you're depressed, when you're idle, when you're upset, go do things selflessly for others, but make sure you come back to where you're at. Sometimes you might be disturbed, say like you went through a bad breakup and you can't believe someone who screwed you over, and how did they get past your defenses? And my answer to that is like, it's not always a blame game, and you cannot over leverage yourself against someone else's doings. You're in control of your actions. How you filtered out past the red flags, that's up to you. But will you continue the same path? And when I ask people that and they come to me, then they begin to understand, like, okay. And instead of being brutal, which is the first response, be kind. Be kind to yourself. Serve people selflessly. And then when you have asks, people want to do for you. I have people who come want to do for me, and I don't ask them. Last night I was in a room with Caroline. What did she do? She promoted me in my talks, right? She promoted me. I didn't ask her to, but she told a group of people what I'm all about. She invited me as an opportunity to express myself in what I do. So I move people forward. So, Diana, welcome to the stage. How are you? And good to see you. Anything you'd like to add?
Good morning. Great to see you too. And I love these types of conversations. I'm just listening for right now, but definitely lots to think about as far as how we experience Clubhouse and all those great things. So I'm curious to continue to listen, and thank you for the space.
No. See, I know something a little special about Diana. Diana comes from Los Angeles community, and she makes impacts. And she won't talk about it too much openly. She's very, I wouldn't say overly conservative, but she is a conservator of helping causes. Diana, you're involved with helping people metaphysically as being a shaman. And when you see people that you serve, and you see them grow, how does it make you feel?
Well, I think that, and thank you for that. It's something that I don't speak about. I consider our spiritual journey one to be shared or kept private, depending on the individual. And in shamanism, I usually, let's see, now that I have the spiritual center in my city, I usually meet people who have zero understanding of spirituality, all the way to people who really have just been traumatized by religion. So you get that spectrum of the human being, and you'd be surprised how many people actually are quite surprised with what can happen when you tap into spirit and you realize that you're never alone. And so I guess I can just give a really quick example. Lots of things going on a platform that we all share, right? And as much as we don't want to make certain things our business, we do have certain people that, quite frankly, we've been in some form of relationship with in the last 2-3 years. And so in these moments when you need certain answers, you'd be surprised at how much comes to you when you tap into yourself and you meditate and you do all the modalities that come with really realizing that the senses in the body serve us at a degree that many of us are completely unaware of. And that's my favorite part about what I do. And it changed my life for sure.
Does
This
it
whole
bring
story.
a level of energy to you that it's like, this is amazing, and I love doing this because I don't always get returns right away, but I feel that I'm making a difference in the world. Do you feel that, out of curiosity, in what you do?
I felt that in the beginning, and I can share something interesting. Even though people realize the depth of the journey, the road of temptation is just so great that many times people do just go back into their cyclical nature. And that's why sometimes this can actually become quite, I haven't figured out the word yet, but I still do it, right? I don't, it's difficult. So I thought that when people were face to face with that which they never even thought possible to be real, that it would shake them the way that it shook me. My life changed immediately. And it doesn't. And that's okay, because listen, I think we're all very young. You know, I know you know that I took care of my grandmother until her last breath, and she was 94. And some of us are still in our 40s. Some of us are in our 20s. The road is very long. So I had to take a sabbatical to deal with what we're talking about right now, because it can get sad, especially when I see the same people. And I just want to leave you guys with this. It's all real, man. It's a beautiful world with so much in it. And when you do tap into that reality, it's limitless. And you don't have to take ayahuasca, you don't take peyote, you don't have to do any of those things. And that's why I have my center, and that's why I haven't left Los Angeles, because that's my thing, and that makes me happy, right? So that makes me happy, being a shaman that doesn't use ayahuasca or any kind of plant medicine. I don't have anything against it. I just think that so many people that come to me have done so many different, let's call it plant medicine, and they still don't have a connection with that which they seek. And so I believe that can cause a significant psychosis, mental illness. All these things in the spiritual community are very, very real. So I appreciate the time you gave me. I don't talk about this anymore.
I know you don't. I told you I'd bring in a conversation. And what I want to say about that is, sometimes I get people out of their comfort zone by showing who they naturally are, and they show what matters to them and how they make impacts. And when you do this, it's not that I'm trying to ruffle your feathers, but because you have a gift. And like she was saying, you can't go to taking this thing to fix your life. I deal with plant medicine. I do. I work with it. I have extenuating circumstances that allow me to understand this is only a medicine, and it has a limitation. There is a life for it, and then there's an understanding, and I move away and I live in sobriety thoughts, because I think that the reason why I also created the show is, like, when you think about what matters, you look about, are you creating too many leverages for things to be laid away to not deal with? Like, if you have trauma, whether you were raised by bad parents, or you were abused in a marriage, or you have been harassed so much that you can't trust people, you still have those problems to have to resolve. And I'm gonna have to bring a book back up that America's Supermom talked about, which was The Greatest Salesman in the World. And Og Mandino talks about in his first scroll from the king, he says, go look for opportunity where others would not. And the story goes where he kind of says, this king says, hey, go sell this robe amongst these people over here. And the guy's like, oh, what the hell do you want me to do that for? Why would you want me to go peddle where I know people ain't going to buy from me? He's like, just go do it anyway. And so the short of the story is he goes and do it and he fails miserably, right? Fails all over. But then he ends up, I believe he gives it to somebody who really needed, right? And the way that the story portrays it kind of sounds like about, the manger and Jesus. It makes you think about that story if you know it. And he goes back to the king and he's all upset and he's like, so what'd you get for the robe? And the guy's like, funny thing along the way, I actually couldn't sell to nobody. He's all right, what'd you do with it? He's all, well, you know what, sir, I'm a failure. I gave it away. Oh yeah? Tell me about it. And so he ends up going to explain. He's like, I gave it to this baby, this family. They had straw, they had a manger and stuff. And I just felt compelled to do this. And the guy looked in shame. And what he ends up doing, he explains in the story, he's like, I'm ashamed. I owe you more. I owe you more than what I'm worth. And the king says, no, you've actually succeeded. You succeeded by doing something. I didn't care about the profit of the robe. I cared about the purpose of the robe for use and showing your selflessness and not just greed. And the guy gets a pass. So it's got to be beyond just motive just to get a return. But when you do things that make a difference, like I can tell you in Clubhouse, there are people that make huge differences in my world. Huge. We attend, we listen, we engage, but then we also withdraw. There's times you take a break, go do your life, go do your work. You don't need to have this on in the background. I'm guilty of having it on in the background a lot. I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'm talking more than I need. I need to more attend to my work. And it was brought up about discipline. Discipline is developed. Discipline is to get you a narrow focus for an outcome. So welcome to the stage, Amanda, Sattva, and Connie. Connie, would you care to chime up? You've been here for a while. Is there anything you'd like to share or add?
Well, good morning. It's if you're in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, and hello to all. This has been really enlightening, calming, soothing, and I was listening to. I think that was Mama. Was she speaking before me? In regards to if I'm not correct, I think it was her. Correct me if I'm wrong. About past traumas and how to move on. You know, it's pretty much hard to move on, but it can be done. And the reason why I said it can be done, a lot of times, you got to forgive, as he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. I take that as its worth. When I meet someone, I tend to look at them how they are until they do something that mimicked my past hurts. And then it's like a red flag. And so basically, when you have a kind heart and you're empathetic, we tend to look at every individual from, we don't want to judge them before. That's how we are. We just don't like to judge. And that's where we do get hurt, but we got to look past that, because we're being used for a purpose in people's lives. Not saying to walk in any type of, heartless type of, uh, what you want to do is just like you don't want to prejudge anyone. You take them for what they were. And then when red flags come up and you see the red flags, that's when you like push back and say, okay, I've been through this before. But again, you're used for a purpose. We go out there, you were talking about the homeless people. And I was with a young gentleman who I was dating at one time, and I saw how he treated the homeless people. That was like a red flag right there, because it's like we don't want to judge them because a lot of times what I've noticed, a lot of them stood. I'm not talking about all of them. A lot of them stood. They stuck their necks out in behalf of fighting for the people in the community. There's so many homeless people who I talked to, and they fought against the system. And so, of course, they were targeted. They lost their homes. They lost their properties, and all they were doing were helping the community. A lot of the veterans, they helped the community. But as you stated, you have to take them for what it's worth. Don't judge them. And then whenever they show to you who they truly are, then you have to push back. And I agree with you. 7-2, the architect, I agree with you. You have to, basically just again, just take it for what it's worth, for how they perceive themselves to be after you have given them the opportunity. And so I thank God for this message this morning. Was so fitting. Can you mind what matters? The weightier matters of what's going on in society. We have to be a giving heart. We have to be the light of the earth. And we have to show that there are kind people. There are good people. We're not going to judge you. But what we're going to do is, a lot of times, hold people accountable as well, too, And yeah. Thank you so much for
I like a lot of what you said. And when it comes to accountability, create limited accountability. It doesn't need to be pressure or shame or disappointment. So that's the only thing I would like to add about that. But no, I agree, like everything that you just said, and I think that's where people need to shift away from. Stop thinking about so much accountability to where you can't live with it. Because then it really tells you, do you manage what's on your plate and it's overflowing and it's too much for you? You have to attend to things and manage things, but still be curious and creative, because our world is constantly based on creativity. That is our creator's greatest gift to us besides life. You have been given an opportunity to live out however you wish, right? Whatever way you want. I don't care, good or bad, it don't matter. But there are consequences for your choices. So anyhow, I'm getting ready to close the room, but Amanda, I see you came into the room. Thank you so much for coming out and stop. Is there anything you guys like to add, or anyone else like to add to the room? And before I open the mic to those, I want to remind you, Saturday I will be creating another room. So Saturday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, I will have another of my daily circus. And then on Monday, if you haven't joined my house, join my house. That's the room at the top of the room, or that's the house at the top of the room. There is another room that I consistently commit to on Mondays with Julie and our co-host Dragon, and it's called The Big Idea. We take entrepreneurship, curiosities, ideas, make it into a powerful, positive master mindset to help anyone grow and have your experiences add to a collective bowl that anyone can enjoy. So make sure 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking about content creation. Anyone else care to chime up before I get ready to close the room, or have any thoughts of what you've learned?
Go ahead, Amanda. I think you're on mic.
Sure, I'll just jump in quickly. Thanks, Jay, for one of the things you were mentioning about having Clubhouse on in the background, right? And just basically how it affects us, right? I think is the easiest way to put it. Whenever we're doing multitasking and doing a bunch of things, and so I loved what you were saying about that, because I actually, and my boyfriend and I were just talking about this recently. I actually have a different approach to it right now, because between me doing the work and this post grad program where I'm doing like a dual degree program, I'm involved in all these nonprofits, I'm doing like a million things, right? And so for me, it's like all I would do, there was no quote unquote human interaction really at all. Everything I was doing, I mean, unless it's like a work meeting, some sort of a work type thing, right? Literally 24 hours while I'm awake, okay, besides sleeping, not even when I'm eating, I'm working while I'm eating. I literally was in front of a computer with no other interaction. And so for me, I think sometimes it helps me to have this because I'm able to break away like right now, right? I'm working, I'm actually doing school and work at the same time and on here. But it's like it helps me mentally to come on here and just talk to people on the app, even if it's, hey, how are you guys today for like 5 minutes. It just helps me break up in my mind this non-so I don't know how else to say it, but like non-social interaction all damn day long. So I love coming in here. Thank you for the room. I just love hearing others speak. I love interjecting every now and then, just so for my mental state, I can connect back with humans in one way or another. So I love what you said about how sometimes it's a detriment for us. And I agree, but for myself, it's almost like that break for me. And so I love it. So but yes, it does keep me grounded because at some points you have to say, okay, now I got to shut it down because I really have to hone in and focus. But anyway, thanks for the room. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Anyone else care to offer any final thoughts before I close out?
Yeah,
That was a great share. Oh, go for it first.
Sure. Okay.
Go for it. It's all you.
Jason, thoughts. Thanks for the space. I don't need to say much. I was enjoying listening to everyone. There's some things that I wanted to share that I found important after the past week of how nonsense at all. Jordan Patterson, Jordan Patterson, a renowned psychologist. Many people know about him.
He's one of my favorite writers, that's for sure.
Yeah, so and so he thinks a lot about the necessity of people and the integration of it in a healthy way. You don't really have a sense or a bearing of what it is to be a good person unless people fathom the capacity and knowing that we're connected to this entire lineage of humanity. It's definitely in there, and if we don't do that, it comes out in the most mysterious ways. And we've seen that on this app. There's so much of that nonsense. I've gone through a lot of life experience, like I've been through different times. I know you're on to close it. One thing that I have found that's been invaluable for me is the geoided numerology. Those that aren't really versed in it, it's a crash course numbers 1
I like
to 9.
numerology. Yeah.
Right on, man. So geoided numerology has been so transformative for my life. I've used the Enneagram, the Western, the Divine Triangle, the Pythagorean Enneagram. And I converted over to the geoided Enneagram about 6 years ago because it's a more natural way for me to understand it. It's a better story. It makes more sense to me. What it does basically have their archon. They have a psychic number, how they think, how they perceive, and they have this overriding number, which is the path of destiny number, which takes into effect at age 35. There's various reasons for that. But then one begins to compromise and the two begin to amalgamate together. I've studied my family, I've studied myself, I've studied those. One thing I have found in my own epistemology, my own life experience, people are just what they are. They're not necessarily power. They're overarching energy, they're archonic energy. However, they are limited by it in many ways until they do that work. How they're being swayed or persuaded or tempted or agitated, and what things can get to people, what things don't get to people, and when one puts that into perspective, how people are when they have this information, the way that one acts, there's a sense of compassion. We're born into these forms, and we have given to us. Why they're given to us is a different context. However, we do have this thing called divine personality, and it does give a lot of insight. For anyone who wants to grow in any capacity, when one is, it does. It's just interesting because the way that these lessons come forward, it's not necessarily how one thinks it's going to be, which is sort of the thought. However, when one really, I don't like the word surrender, but gives oneself, that's when everybody wins. I love what you have said, Jason, in regards to doing something for someone just because it makes sense. That's the real ROI. I mean, for me, life is about feeling good. I want to feel good. I want to feel good and interaction. I want them to, and if that's there, that's riches. That's real rich. And of course, money is important. Thanks, Pablo.
I appreciate that so much, and I just want to bring to attention, if you want to look up numerology, it's great. I first learned about numerology in the book The Secret, and the one that caught my most attention, and I even caught some of her lectures, is Marie Diamond. And I learned when I meditate in the Southwest. I figured out where my best direction. It's kind of like learning a feng shui of living, and some people rely on astrology and other things, but I like numerology because it really kind of, for me, it gives me, you could say, a real life algorithm that benefits you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else care to close? I'm about to close here.
I just wanted to speak really briefly about what Diana was saying about, the joy or the excitement when she's able to have people not be the way that she was. And one quote comes to mind is never forget what it's like to be a sailor because you're the captain now. So a lot of times when we are talking to people that have been where we were, we have been modeled through education to think that we have to handhold everybody through that process. And we look for what we think is right. But when we learn to remove judgment and just take the energy that somebody gives us and model for them, then they can use that energy that they have and start living the way they want to. So I guess the best analogy would be if I'm a farmer and I just have a handful of seeds, a lot of times the seeds don't tell me what they're going to become, but I know that I'm supposed to put them in the ground. I don't have any idea what the harvest is going to be, but if I plant them, that's all the work that I have to do. It's just knowing where it's supposed to go in the ground, because I don't know what is going to be the harvest. So a lot of times we think, we start hearing pieces of people's story and it resonates with us. And so we have this thing of like, oh my gosh, they're the same, but we all have a different purpose. That's like me being an apple tree, but I'm seeing somebody else as a fruit also, but they are an orange, right? So the way that we prevent ourselves from doing that is understanding that the principles that we share with people may be the same, but at the end of the day, we don't know what a seed is going to become. So there's a level that people are going to go to beyond us. We just have to do the part about planting the seeds. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks for a great room. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, guys, come back Saturday morning. I'll have a great discussion. I'll have an interesting, engaging topic, and that's what, if anything you've learned, learn something, join the house, leave some comments. I leave see, here's one thing I want to encourage people on Clubhouse. If you've learned something today or found something really interesting, go into the house and type in a comment and share it with people, because that's where people really want to know, well, what's going on in this house? What's going on in this room? If you're creating rooms that have outcomes for you to do something better, then the only thing I can ask is just share, share what you've learned and share with friends and invite people that really could benefit the share. I don't want you to just share with anybody. Be picky. Like, this is my ask of you. If you come in on Saturday, find 5 people you specifically can think of between now and then. Today's Thursday, so you got a day and, basically 2 days to think about it. Think of 5 people you could bring into the space. I'm also producing live on YouTube. So if they don't want to be on the stage on Clubhouse, or they want to watch, and they can still hear everything, I'm producing live on YouTube, Twitter, and also Twitch, I believe. So anyhow, thanks guys for coming out. We'll see you next time. See you Saturday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. You all have a great day.
Bye.